Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so excited to have everyone here, and thank you, Kara and Scott, for doing so much of the lifting on organizing this and getting us ready. And so I'm going to be talking today about assessments and why we have had such a big response to COVID in the last couple of months. And so that's it. But let's begin with a few introductions. I am Christina Heffernan. I am the co-founder and chief strategist of ASSISTments. And I'm going to bring my picture down here. There we go. I'd like to also introduce my husband, Neil Heffernan. He's there. He's going to say a few words and then we'll continue on.
Excellent. So we've been running ASSISTments for 15 years. It's a free public service of Worcester Polytechnic Institute. My main job around here is to actually write grants to actually support our work with ASSISTments. We've raised something like $25 million in National Science Foundation and U.S. Department of Education money to actually provide this as a free public service. So I think last year there were 100,000 actually kids using ASSISTments, actually with I think 2,500 teachers who have already clearly quadrupled that actually just due to COVID. And we're happy to actually kind of provide this service as a free public service. So we sometimes are presenting at math conferences and some teacher will see like free, though there's got to be a hitch. No, there isn't. Actually, my wife and I had built this thing, and actually we were middle school math teachers a billion years ago, and we built a platform that is actually a simple platform to actually help teachers make sure their kids get feedback. And so in times like this can be very useful. To be honest, it's actually every kid should be getting immediate feedback on their homework actually. So even when COVID is over, you should definitely be looking at us to actually provide that support.
Thank you, Neil.
That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Cool. And there's already a message in the chat saying, is that a long-term strategy? So yes, it's a long-term strategy. And a lot of the reasons have to do with just a mission for us in life. And also we want people to share content in ASSISTments and do some sharing, and you can't also then charge for it. And I'll also be explaining that we have put in a lot of the open source online curriculums, and those can only be shared in a free service. So that is also a nice benefit of us being free. And then Cindy, if you just want to chime in real quick, just make sure your audio is working and say hi and introduce yourself. Cindy is going to be answering questions as a moderator on our chat.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cindy Starks, and I work at ASSISTments with Christina and Neil, and I am in charge of teacher engagement for product and research, and I'll be answering your questions on the chat.
Thank you. And reading them out to me so that I don't have to also read the chat. That's always tricky. So our goal today is just to familiarize you with ASSISTments, the 4 steps of using our tool, and then also sort of support in learning how to use this in a distance learning situation. And then as far as an agenda, we're going to talk a little bit quickly. I don't want to talk too much. Thank you, Scott, for really instilling the idea of quests upon us. And so after I sort of explain what ASSISTments is and what it isn't, we're going to go on and do 3 simple quests. They're simple, they're good, but they're getting us out and talking to each other. And then we'll come back and talk with whatever time we have left about how ASSISTments can be used in this distance learning environment. So first, I just wanted to show this graph, and it's applicable to what's gone on in this conference so far as we talk about graphs and using data. This graph kind of tells the story of the changes that have happened to us in March. I think we have all experienced a lot of changes in March, and it's been very interesting. This one shows how we have just had an influx of people interested in using ASSISTments and learning about ASSISTments during this distance learning time. And I think all of you have your own stories, but this is, and I suspect that it has a big change between February and March as well. So what is ASSISTments and what is it not? ASSISTments is about immediate feedback for students, and then in turn, immediate feedback to teachers in the form of data. And that kind of immediacy allows for students and teachers to identify where they need help and to then move into the teaching and learning with each other. And so by having data and having this information, they're able to to make those adjustments together. What it's not is it's not about grades. So when you are finished learning something, sometimes tools like assessments are used to give immediate grades for teachers in the form of data. We think of assessments as more of a learning tool. So when you think of doing homework, you should be getting those problems wrong. And when you get problems wrong, you get maybe a low score. So we call the numbers that come up in assessments a score and not so much a grade, because we're talking really about that formative time in the instruction process. And we're all about support during problem solving. So there are always moments, and everyone's got a different flow to their class and different things that they like to do for activities. But there's usually a time when there's that moment when everyone stops and does some independent practice. And that's where assessments, it's not, why did I say it's not a system for supports? I don't know, that I just got confused on myself. So there must have been a tweaky word that I didn't say. Anyways, as Kara keeps saying, this is a learning experience. I don't know why it says it is not a system to support problem solving where it is. We'll come back to that in later times. Anyways, it's also not a new math curriculum. We let you drive the curriculum. We let you decide what problems to send to your students. And it's not a purchase tool. It's always free. So there we go. I have done that first part. Now we can move on to our quests. And let's see how this goes. So assessments there's 4 basic steps for doing assessments. And I'm so glad Neil's there smiling. I can see him. It gives me confidence as we go through this. And so,
you can do it, dear.
All right. So we have 4 basic steps, and teachers create their own assignments. Students work through those assignments. They get their immediate feedback. Then there's data that comes into the teacher. And finally, there's this last step of analyzing that data together. So our first our quests are going to be in the form of a 1 minute where you do your own work. So I'm going to give each one of you a link to go to, and that's where we get to follow Kara's instructions about how to remove yourself from being an all screen. Maybe you need to minimize that so that you can open up the link and do the exploration that I've set out for you. And then we're going to break out into breakout rooms of about 10 people. I have found in the breakout rooms I went to in the last session that there were lots of people multitasking, and please continue to do that. We all recognize everyone has a lot going on in their homes right now because they've turned into offices and kitchens and everything else. And so you can, if you're free to open up and have a discussion about what you see and what you wonder in my task, then please do that. And then we'll come back after about and maybe we'll do 4 minutes at the beginning, the first one, or 5 minutes so that people can get to know each other. So that's the quest format. So here's our first quest. And it's about exploring content. So where do you find content? What does the content look like in assessments? So what I want everyone to do is probably minimize your screen because it probably went to full screen, and go to www.assistments.org. And I think, yep, Cindy's put that in the chat. Go there and then click on the menu tab called Explore Content, and you'll get here. And I'm going to start a timer, and I'm going to be quiet for 1 minute while you all just click around and explore. See what you find in that tab. See what the content starts to look like. Come back, go back in. And as you're doing that, find one thing that you notice and one thing that you wonder about. Then we'll go into the breakout rooms after that minute. And when you come back, you can write any questions you have in the chat, and Cindy will triage those, and I'll try to answer those questions. So here goes the minute of explore time. Oops. Thank you, Neil. And so if people want to put into their chats into the chat any questions that you have as you were doing your noticing and wondering from the explore content page.
There's a good one here.
All right.
it says, so the website's goal is to hold different resources.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to think about it. So we're holding a lot of open source resources that are published under Creative Commons or given out for free, and a few of the things we've created ourselves. But it's the resources are there, and then that first step for teachers is to go and find a place that they want to begin with, and then selecting the items they want to assign. Yeah. Anything else?
Another question was, yes, can you choose some or all of the questions?
So yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm just going to go over and share my screen and look at Explore content. And I won't go into detail, but if you find this page is now showing a string of problem sets. If I go to the previous page, it's a set of folders. So you can see by that little icon whether it's folders or problem sets. And so now I'm at the problem set level. When you open up a problem set, you can view all of the problems. And at this point, it's up to the teacher to select which items to assign. So I can select this first one, I can scroll down and select this one. And I am making those choices about which problems my student is going to see. And I suspect someone's going to ask, can you mix and match between problem sets? And you can. It's just a matter of learning how to use our builder. So, yes. So it's really important to us that the assignment that goes out to your students is your assignment, and that way it informs your instruction. So that's that first step. What else, Cindy?
A couple of questions about, does it work with Schoology or is it only Google Classroom?
Right. So today it only works through Google Classroom. We are working right now to launch in at least by 2 weeks from now, our Canvas integration. So if you contact us and get on our mailing list, you can get information about the Canvas. And then once we're done with Canvas, we're going to work on the Schoology integration. Yeah, Neil.
Let me just give out another one. Actually, Carl sent me a private message saying, hey, I went to the Connected Math actually textbook series. And it's like, we can't see the questions. Do the kids actually have to own the book? And the answer is yes.
Yes, yes.
Actually, so let me just answer that myself, which is if Pearson actually found out we were copying the questions into ASSISTments, we would be violating their copyright, meaning your district still has to buy the book. So if you're sent home the books, then you can use ASSISTments. The kids will actually, see on their screen, open up their book to page 12, and that's how we stay away from actually violating the textbook publisher's copyright.
Yeah, and that's why these illustrative Open Up and Engage New York, they're published under Creative Commons, and so as a complete curriculum, we're able to put them into our system with the problems visible. Great. Any last questions? Because I'm gonna, we can save questions for later too, Cindy, if you're writing them down, but I want to make sure we get through our second and third quests.
Yeah, especially, I think some of them will be answered. There's a lot of questions on the student side, and I think that when we get to that, people will get to see that. So
there we go. So this is step 2 in our process, and that's the ASSISTments doing the work and getting their immediate feedback. So what I'm going to have you do, actually, I'm going to swing over here real quick and show you something. If I go into Explore Content, at the very bottom is a Getting Started with Students folder. And inside of that is a problem set called Learning ASSISTments Practice Set. And I have created a link for you guys to go and do that practice set. It is definitely meant to be assigned to students to learn the system. So it's, you can type in https://bit.ly/learning set, or I'm sure Cindy will get the link into the chat.
Now. Yep.
And click on that, and that's a preview of that problem set. And so go ahead and go through that. If you read the instructions as you're going through, it tells you to get certain things wrong and certain things right. So I'm going to set that timer, let people have about a minute to sort of dig into that. You may not finish. And then we're going to go to our breakout rooms for another 3 minutes while people can finish and chat, and that'll be Kara with the same group of people. And so these are people you've talked to before. And if there's no one else in the chat with you in that little room, you can always leave the room and come back to the main room, and that main room will become another chat room. I'm just gonna, while Cindy's looking into the chat and trying to find the next wonder, I'm gonna answer one that somebody was asking in one of the rooms I was in. There was a question about the answer like if it's 2/4 is correct, what about 1/2 and what about 0.5? And that is a byproduct of the author. And so when the author creates the problem, they set the answer type to be number or exact fraction, or even number expression, numerical expression. And then there's also algebraic expression. So if the answer type is number, any number that's equivalent will be correct. But you can't say 1/4 plus 1/4. If it's numerical expression, then the student could type in 1/4 plus 1/4 and also get that correct. Because we're all math teachers here, that would be a really nice answer type for find the surface area of the rectangular prism. Then it would be okay for a student to write 2 times 3 times 2 plus 2 times 4 times 2 plus 4 times 3 times 2. And then they could type that in and get it marked correct without doing the arithmetic. So it's about the author. And so it depends, and hopefully the author wrote enough instructions in the problem for the student to be able to answer it correctly. And if they don't, one of the things we like to remember is that you can then have a conversation about that, and that it's not a grade, it's a score, and we move on after the discussion. So other questions, Cindy, that are coming up?
I see a bunch of people actually asking, what does the teacher see?
Right, so that's coming up next. Good. So so let's move on, because I'm worried about time a little bit. So this is more the students. I think everyone's experienced that. There's the bar that shows your partial credit. That's really as a numerical indicator for you as a teacher, and the students to know that they've dropped down. But let's go on to the teachers. So that's our third step, is the teacher actually looking at the report of how things went. And so what we have here, and Cindy, are you still there? You might be muted too.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry.
So if you could put that in the chat, and it's this little bit.ly and the reports for teachers. This is going to take you to a PowerPoint that explains our assignment report. And then when we come back, I'll show you a live one. The live ones are of course more interesting, but I'll let you for a minute take a look at that PowerPoint and look at all the parts of the report that teachers get, and then we'll break out and you can discuss it for 3 minutes in your small groups again. While Cindy's gathering any of your questions, I'm just going to show you what a report looks like live. So this is a report. These students are actually graduate students of Neil's, who helped us put together this report. So these are real people, but they're not kids. One of the things you can do is hide those names, however, and so that the names are no longer there. Across the top are the problems. Because we are a computer system, every problem has an ID. And so you'll see these PR for problem IDs across the top. You can actually click on them to see what the problem was, and to even go through it live if you want with the students. But this gives you a big view to see what the problem is. You see the % correct for each one of the problems. You also see the % for each of the students. And so these students at the top got 100%, that's their score. And the thing I really love is the common wrong answer. Might as well let computers do some of that calculation. So what we have here is 42% of the students said 9. And I think I brought up this problem. The problem has to do with scaling, and 9 is the actual number of times bigger that the object is, but the scale factor is 3. So the kids were close with 9. But there was just one more leap of mathematics that needed to get done. Cindy, any questions that come out of the chat?
We're having a lot of questions about scoring open response questions.
Aha. So I can click here on essay scoring under the open response. And here is all the open responses in one place. I can give it a score and I can give it a little message. The students then will click on the link in Google Classroom and it takes them to their report again and they can see that message. The other cool thing you can do here is you can give numbers to the different responses that you find really particularly intriguing, and you can sort and bring those to the top. And in distance learning time, you can actually, well, you want to hide the names, and then you can take a screenshot and ship this back to the students as a discussion of that open response question. One or two more things, Cindy. I'm noticing that we are running really, really out of time, and so I want to do some closing up. Anything else? That's
I think a lot of people are interested in building and doing a lot of modifications to questions.
Okay, so let me get to that, because that's not surprising that this crowd is kind of into that kind of more. So let me get through some of the rest of this and make sure that we get to that. So quest number 2 is done. We looked at the 3 parts, but there's a 4th part of assessments, which is analyzing those things together. And in the world, back in the world, it was so long ago when we used to be in school with our students, teachers would project this report anonymously and just present it. Over here on the right is a video that I'm just going to play muted so that I can, because it doesn't work. You can't do a video on a video. Who knew? This teacher projected on the wall the common wrong answer and the right answer. He said, okay, guys, this was a common wrong answer. And then he talked about the problem itself. This was a problem about scaling. And then he launched it into the students and let them do a breakout room, you might say, at their tables where they discussed why 4,000 was the common wrong answer. And then he had a chance for them to talk as a whole group about what they discovered in their small groups about that common wrong answer and really dig into that mathematics. So that's something he was able to do with the report. In distance learning, we have this example. This teacher, Andrew Burnett, he just did a screencastify of his report. So here he is in the corner. Notice he's wearing a sweatshirt, still at home. And he's going over the report for his students. And he's looking, they did pretty well, but then he found this one place where there was a 63%. And he then took that piece and went back out, and he actually used another tool where he drew out and talked about the solution and explained what was going on mathematically. And he knew to dig in there because that was the place where the students didn't do so well. And so this last step is really key to us. Like, that's why you get the data, is so that you can respond. And we're starting to explore different ways of doing that remotely and asking our teachers to share with us the ways that they're doing that last step with their students in the remote situation. And this is just one example. I really want to be mindful of time, so I'm not going to go through these quotes. You guys can read all that in my slides. I did want to mention that ASSISTments is proven to be effective. Neil and I conducted a 44 school with a lot of help from, we had an evaluator, SRI, Stanford Research International, worked with us to run a study on 44 schools in the state of Maine. And we got very good results, and we are now in the What Works Clearinghouse as one of the math products, and also in evidence for ESSA as a strong, having a strong rating. And we had some really good results that you can look through there too. Because today was not I didn't do a demo per se, you definitely want to go to ASSISTments.org and go to our distance learning page. It's at the top of the page. We got a banner, click on that. If you want a tutorial, this new user tutorial is perfect. It's going to tell you what to do. If you want to see what it's like for students, the student video is really great. And then there's more resources. If you go to the more resources, those of you who are, let me just go there for you, want to build, to answer that question from Cindy, under user resources, under how can I, there is a how can I build my own content. I would strongly suggest that you send a couple, get the cycle 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 done without building, and then go ahead and click here and build away. It's a little quirky because we've built a new system, and the builder is in the old system. So it's not for the faint of heart, but I suspect there's a lot of not faint of heart people on this webinar. So also come and join our Facebook community and ask questions, share what you're doing. We're really, really excited to give you some support, and we're really excited to learn what you can do with our tool. Like, we built this for teachers, and the idea of teachers sharing with other teachers on how they're using our tool is really exciting to us. So I want to be mindful of time, and so I want to stop. Kara, should we put up your slide and let you put up the timer so people can go to break, and maybe we can stay on to chat and answer some of the questions? Does that seem like reasonable?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, unless